Yeah. Oh gosh. Okay. Hello. Good morning. Happy Saturday, May 31st. That's my latest jam, To Me Today by Jin. And I listened to it. I actually decided, I don't know about you guys, because karaoke or norebang is so popular in our culture and in the US with friends. That is my new karaoke song. So I just have to perfect it when I have time to practice. But I do love that song because it's about living today and it's like a message to himself. So our message today is to think to you today, to live well, to focus on the moment. And that's a lot of work actually. So welcome to K Talk. I have lots to share. I always have lots to share. Some updates. Well, I'm in a different place today. I'm in actually husband's office because we're moving out stuff and it's right by my office. And when I say we're moving out stuff, people are here as we speak moving. Now, to be clear, we're not moving literally anytime soon, not even within the next 6 months. But as we shift, and I think you guys loved your DMs. I'm like, clearly there's a lot going on, good stuff. And then challenging things of deciding next steps, which we knew was coming. So we decided to move some things out, as in things that we no longer need. And I actually had a hard time. I'm like, remember I told you like last week, I'm like, we could use this. And then I'm like, no, we haven't used it in 10 years. So I guess we don't need it anymore. Right. So things like that, we are kind of getting rid of, almost in some sense junk. But you know how like your junk could be someone else's treasure. I think there's a saying in that, whatever that is. Oh, I need to pull up the chat. I just realized I did not pull up the chat box. Hello. Yay, happy Saturday. It's very cold here. Oh yeah, it's chilly here too. It's very chilly here. Hello, Joanne. Haven't seen you in a while. Mandy from New Jersey. I was just talking about, you guys heard transitioning and moving things out, but it's a cleanly like feeling. Do you know what I mean? Like feeling like, what is it? Spring cleaning. It's still spring. That's what we're doing because we have a very short window of time here in the USA to get a lot of stuff done like that. And I'm also planning ahead, as in once we officially move, which we will in the US, and have different home bases, Seoul and the US, which we're continuing to do. I think it's just easier for our transition in 2026. So I have another child graduating in 2 weeks from high school, but we have another child graduating in 2026 from college. So I'm like, well, when you have 4 kids, someone's always graduating. So then next year's graduation, by then it'll look very different, literally. And you might see me a lot more in Korea. We're already there a lot, but I want to say a lot more. It just makes more sense to be there. And but I'll always be, I think, always on East Coast time because of my work. So that's it. That's the biggest update. My daughter got engaged. Oh, our daughter, because hubby is on here. Our daughter got engaged, which those who are on my April tour in Jeju knew about it because we shared that her then now fiance got our blessing. Yes, we do things the traditional way. And so he asked for our blessing, which we knew was coming and knew even when it would happen, just not the exact day. And we were very impressed. Professional photographer. I mean, hello. It's like, and we have all these photos that are like, I guess, engagement / pre-wedding photos, which are really, really nice. So yeah, it's a big milestone. I can't believe it. That I could be a mother of the bride in the next year. You know what I'm saying? Oh my goodness. Anyways, it's also emotional for hubby. So yeah, that's our big milestone news. And then 2 weeks, you will see our youngest, our 4th child, graduate from high school. Hello from, I want to say, Toronto, New Jersey, Hawaii, Massachusetts, New Jersey. Sorry, I went to NYU, so I have a lot of Jersey and New York friends. New York. Thank you. I know it's a huge deal. We're very happy. And of course, I was like, let me see the ring. So we did get to see the ring before she saw the ring, even though she had quite a say in it. You know how it is, right? Having a say in your ring. So that's our big family update there. Okay. And this will be the last K Talk, I think, before we head to Korea, just because it gets busy the next couple of days. Now our next big thing is packing and then planning a big graduation party because my whole family's coming just for our son's graduation. Yay. Hello, Zoe from Minneapolis. I love that you guys are connecting here. So say where you are because you guys might be in the same area. Okay, and then now let's go through some deep dives because I have lots of good questions for you guys from you guys. Oh, hello from Turkey. Cool. Hello. Thank you for coming. Okay, so Heavenly Ever After. You don't have emojis here, right? I was thinking it's a Zoom. Say yes or no if you watch this. Yes or no, did you watch Heavenly Ever After? Thank you. Congrats to your daughter and sons. Did you see Heavenly Ever After? It was on Netflix. Son Seok-gu, Han Ji-min, and oh my goodness, I forgot the wonderful actress's name. I just know her name is Haesuk in the drama. But I will deep dive this a little bit. So if you haven't seen this one, I'm not going to be, oh, hello from Virginia. I'm not going to share too much spoilers, but it was interesting. And the word that I used before, and I see it also people using, quirky. I thought it was quirky. I enjoyed the first several episodes. And then for me, in all honesty, episodes 4 through, hello from Hawaii, Carrie, episodes like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I struggled with a little bit, but I still watched. You know, like when you still watch something, but you're kind of like, what's going on? And then some of the, I don't know, heavier scenes with hell. It brought up a lot of interesting spiritual, religious, I guess, questions and what's the word? Thought and critical thinking that I think was cool. I always think it's good to bring up different themes that you don't normally see. And then even like life after life on earth, what that looks like. I mean, I think it was very interesting, very emotional at times too. So, but then I will say, to me, it got back on track a little bit more. Episodes 10, I think it ended at 12, right? So episodes 11 and 12, I really actually liked. So I actually liked how they ended it more than a lot of other K dramas, if that makes sense. I thought the ending made sense to me, and I particularly liked. Yeah, okay. Oh, I got to talk about that intimacy coordinator. Let me put a hold on that. But episode 11, Han Ji-min's character was always the mystery. She's like that character that everyone's like, who is she? She didn't know who she was in the drama. She had no memory. And at one point, I'm like, oh my goodness, please don't tell me they're going to do some love triangle. And you guys know what I mean if you've seen it. It just didn't make sense, or it was kind of cringy. And that's when I was a little like, what's going on? That was probably during that time. Also, they showed parts of hell. And then it got like, at one point, my husband and my aunt and uncle who were staying with us in Korea watched it ahead of me. Like, I think I had something, and then I came home and they were like 2 episodes ahead of me. And I was like, what am I watching? Because I saw something with hell. And then that's kind of when I skimmed over, because I was like, what is that? And that was a little dark. And not even just dark, because I can handle dark. It just was a little off the wall. But then now I think back, maybe they just had to show that aspect. But what is really interesting about this drama is it brought up some themes, societal issues, societal, I guess, not just issues, things that they addressed in the drama very interestingly. You may not agree or disagree or whatever that is, but it's like the way they showing punishment or redemption, addressing like people in hell who thought, I'm sorry, I really like this actually. Journalists who cover stories that really hit me, because that is so modern day Korea right now, like how media portrays a story or a celebrity or a celebrity story, and they brought that up. So they brought up real life, current, modern day issues, and then addressed it in their own heaven and hell way. And I thought that was kind of cool. I mean, I say cool as in, oh, that's a unique angle, and how one of the journalists kind of was in hell for what he did in an article and his role and him writing it, even though he said, I was reporting the news. It was like that question, really, were you? You know, did you have to do it this way where you caused, well, not just cause, but it ended in a suicide, right? So very realistic, like that's why it could be triggering. And then Somi. So Han Ji-min's character, I'm gonna bring her up. Episode 11, of course, I'm gonna like episode 11. If you guys haven't seen episode 11, it was basically highlighting Han Ji-min's character of Somi and who she really was. So she wasn't a person, right? Not right, if you haven't seen it. She was a manifestation of Haesuk, the main woman. Gosh, what's her name? Somebody Google it and tell me, because I love her as an actress who, by the way, absolutely love that she was a lead as an older actress. You know, you don't get to see that generation lead roles. She was also in Dear My Friends and Our Blues, but Dear My Friends, she also had a lead. So I love seeing that, just that population get highlighted. And she was the lead, female lead. and it was a manifestation of her own trauma and the emotionality surrounding it. So Han Ji-min represented her, but an emotion or all the emotions surrounding a trauma that she endured. I guess this could be a spoiler, but there is a trauma in there that to that point I went, what a horrific trauma. I mean, there are horrific traumas, of course, everywhere. Everybody has the trauma informed perspective as we all experience some sort of trauma in our lives. But the way they displayed her story, I was just like, yeah, how do you recover from that? And then she had a hard time recovering, where she actually went into what they would say is like disassociation. So forgetting about it, like amnesia, and then moving on because she had another trauma to deal with, which was her husband, Son Seok-gu's if you don't know his story, he in his first life or his life on earth, they had a very long, happy marriage, but he was bedridden for almost all of it, except for maybe a few years of their beginning marriage together. So a very tough life, but she showed joy in their marriage. And so that emotional aspect in episode 11, I actually thought that was well done. It was very emotional, but I was like, oh, that's true, as in that exists, like such trauma surrounding something, that a way of coping is complete avoidance. And once you completely avoid it, then you forget it, So that was there. And that emotional. So Han Ji-min's character was like, there to come out and bring that side of oh, thank you, Kim Hye-ja. Yes, Kim Hye-ja. The actress she had to deal with it. And she obviously dealt with it in her afterlife, but very fascinating that she finally realized that this is a spoiler, but had a child, right? And then how did she deal with that and that grief? I got a question which comes later on about grief. This is another example of grief. There is no one way of showing how grief is, experience in this world. This is one example, this K-drama, just how it could be an extreme example of where you forget you went through this. The husband happened to be very thankful that his wife didn't remember that trauma because it was so very hard. They went through a really hard time. He saw his wife basically, in some sense, going into a really spirally downhill, which I also think is realistic. And then that emotional Somi character was a reminder of this. Hello, I exist. I'm kind of out in limbo. You never resolved or even faced my existence. That was very interesting. And they kind of made it a dark section at one point where she was a dark emotion, but then I was like, oh, that kind of is real. Not to see that emotions like grief are dark, but they can get you in dark places. So I like that. So that's episode 11. That was one of the dramas, actually rare dramas, where I pinpointed that episode is probably made me go, okay, this drama isn't that bad. But until then, I was like, what is this? Did anybody feel that way? Good actors, so many actors are amazing. They're veteran actors. And then there's that comic relief with the daughter, or the adoptive daughter. Really fun, but I didn't get her for a little bit. I'm like, what is going on? So there were times when I asked, but I kept going because I just like when you like the actors and, you generally think it's not too heavy of a watch. I was watching it, kept going. And then episode 11 kind of secured it going. And I actually watched that episode like 3 times because I just wanted to get the analysis. I go, oh, this is really good. So I thought it was really well done. If you want to watch that episode, you kind of have to watch the rest, but you kind of see it. There's a lot of trauma and resolution of not grief, because you'll always be grieving in some sense. You're very different post-grief, pre-grief, but just a resolution of how that was so traumatic and she just couldn't move. I guess she couldn't move past what happened. And I think that helped her move past what happened, but it's part of the grief is part of her. That's why it was so emotional. And then she had to face it with some characters. And then that emotion, Han Ji-min's character, went away. So I actually thought that's really well done. That's kind of what I work with. How do you face these deep, dark emotions that kind of make these voices I say to you, it's all your fault, right? You're a terrible person. You're a terrible mom. How could you do those? Those are the things we hear. You have to face those and resolve it. You do have to face. That's why that's how there's mental health issues. When you don't face things, when you ignore them, you avoid them, it builds and builds and builds. So we all have to work at it, right? Facing the really, really difficult things, especially grief. I think grief to this day, number one hardest thing to address. Definitely, and then there's grief that you never addressed, that you didn't know you were grieving till you watch this. So there's some people who DM me going, wait, I didn't even know that this could be grief. And now I'm feeling this. So it brought us some things, right? Yeah, they were the most impactful. I loved episodes 1, 2, 3, and 4 too with the pets. Now, there's always that question of, people ask me this, do pets really go to heaven? I go, I don't know, but you would hope so. I mean, especially pets that they're animals, right? So everybody has such a love for them, especially if you have a pet. And so I think it was episode 2. And I had people going, yeah, Jeannie, I saw your story and I decided to watch it. And then, yeah, thanks a lot, making me cry episode 2. And I go, I know exactly the episode you're talking about. But yeah, it was like a tearjerker because you saw like these, especially they showed mainly dogs, right? And their relationship to their owners and all that stuff. So I like that too. Just that was different, showing pets in heaven, regardless of what you believe. I still thought it brought out a lot of the issues of grief and unresolved grief, things in your first life, because I talked a lot about reincarnation, like how you lived your first life and then how you're going to live your next life, right? And yes, all dogs go to heaven. And yeah, so that's my deep dive there. So I mainly wanted to say episode 11 is something I will probably do my best to clip out or talk about, though the actual clip is dark. So I probably might not use that clip, but I've already talked a little bit about that as in a great example of a grief that you didn't know you had because you hit that specific boundary of like, let me go into this land of I will forget it, and that's what happened. And then Hanjiman brought that out. So she resolved it and Hanjiman went away. And then she was in episode 12. And then episode 12 kind of wrapped things up very interestingly. And so I thought it was very cool. It was the tearjerkers by the last 2 episodes. So I do recommend it, except you could gloss over episode 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's what I did. I was kind of like, I don't even remember episode 8. I just kind of went, I don't know this. Tomorrow had an episode of Address Pets, which was, yes, I totally remember that one. I also love Tomorrow. With the dog. Yeah. Yes, they feel and think. Hello, if you have one, you understand. So totally gripping. And if you want to watch it, I do recommend it, but I'm sorry, that was just there was convolutedness episodes 5 to 10. That's my opinion. And then it wrapped up nicely. Okay, then what's the next one? Oh, let's see. It was interesting that they went to heaven to get therapy to heal their trauma instead of doing them. Oh, thank you for bringing that up. I think so too, because, but I was okay with that because it still showed it and it still showed them addressing it, even though the setting was heaven. And I'm actually very open to how they show something as long as they're addressing it. But it also tells you that I don't know, maybe it's easier in the afterlife and they still see it as something very abstract. But we're also watching a cultural, like a Korean language television show, right? So very much focused on the Korean culture. And so I think that's still part of the culture where they want to touch therapy. It's kind of like they're kind of like, I know this would be good for me. So there's not so much the stigma, but then they face societal stigma still, regardless of what society you're in. Even the younger generation that's very much more open, they have to face the system, And so but I did like that. I mean, I was like, okay, it's interesting, but still they brought it up and that's still a depiction. Any depiction, that saying, you cannot be what you cannot see. So I like the fact that you could still see somebody in a therapy session and then be like, also that could be, even if I haven't really seen any off the wall things. I'm trying to think. I'll let you know. I know there were some off the wall things I've seen in K dramas, but that particular one, that I thought it's okay. They're seeing a depiction of something that makes them think and maybe go, oh, I guess maybe that's what I need. I see that too. And that's really encouraging. So thank you for bringing that up. Good morning from Houston. Yeah, I also saw the ending twice just to make sure I understood everything. Okay, so Resident Playbook. I wrote notes on this one. Where are my notes? Not because I'm going to go so in depth, but overall, Hospital Playlist is still way above Resident Playbook. That's my opinion. If you haven't seen Hospital Playlist, highly recommend. That's probably why we went back to it, because we loved it so much. But I still think what I'm happy about first, let me just say the real life part of Resident Playbook. Resident Playbook was delayed. The broadcast, it was supposed to be aired last May. And I totally remember when it was all hyped up to be broadcasted, but then they kept delaying it because of all the medical turmoil in Korea, medical strikes, the anti-medical field that people were feeling, doctors going on strike, and some backlash with doctors/residents. I mean, so basically they didn't want to get into that. I can understand that. And so it got delayed almost a year. And then it was kind of neat to see that it was actually popular. So even in Korea, I think it did pretty well. So that's cool. So you want a drama to do well, and I love the actors, and I love some of the new I think this new actress was her debut. She was one of the residents. I'm still miffed that we did not get a season 3. You never know. I don't think they've ever said no to season 3, right? They have such good chemistry. For I guess for now, no season 3 coming. But yes, the guest appearances were the best, and they really got all of them. They didn't even get the leads. They got like the side characters too that we all recognized. And then I also had fun going back and watching Resident Playbooks OST. The Hospital Playlist cast did a couple of the songs on the OST. Go and watch it. It's really cool. Just first of all, they're beautiful musicians and singers, and then they show the the scenes from Resident Playbook, which I thought was really good. So there's a lot, like, you know how like you watch a K-drama and then you go down a rabbit hole of things behind the scenes. I always do. I love watching behind the scenes. I'll watch some of their interviews. And so I did like the overall experience surrounding Resident Playbook. The story itself, what I liked, I'm going to highlight a couple things. I liked the aspect of doctors to residents. So we saw a little bit of that. Oh yeah, we definitely saw a lot of that in Hospital Playlist from the doctor's perspective. This is from the resident's perspective. So super cool in that sense. Definitely focused on their own growth and experiences. I thought from what I saw, um, it really showed empowered female leaders, you know? And then that one male mentor of that doctor who toward the latter half of the show really mentored that one resident who's that new art actress. So not good at names, but I loved her too, their relationship. What I liked was showing different aspects of mentors being, you know, like that you can be a jerk basically, and you're yelling at the doctor. And you know what? Some of that's actually real life. Actually, one of the scenes when the doctor is yelling at the resident, I've seen that in real life, not so much in the hospital because that's not where I trained, but I saw that in real life in the work I've done where, you know, like a news director's thrown like something at an anchor and that was in front of me. That's when I was in my 20s. So that kind of stuff does happen. That was 20 years ago, even. So I know that happens. But anyway, seeing that was a little bit triggering, but then showing the experience of a resident, all good and bad portrayals are important in K-dramas. So I thought it was important to see that because I think that exists. But then when the mentor toward the latter half, the male physician defends this resident and kind of lifts her up and empowers her, I'm like, that is also good to see because I know those also exist. And I just wish we saw a little bit more of that. But, you know, for drama's sake, I'm sure it's how they portrayed it. But I love that we saw that toward the latter half as things were kind of wrapping up and as they were growing into being second year residents. And so and I loved the female physician who is the key OBGYN. You guys know, I know her she was in Attorney Woo. She was in Hometown Cha-Cha-Cha. She is a great actress. And she was, I would say, the key mentor to the female lead resident, Ko Young-jung's character, Young. Yeah, Oh Young, right? Loved how she, in some sense, at the end, there's like this camaraderie. I tend to look at, I'm talking about the ending, but it all makes sense with everything going on. And then one thing I had to bring up was the storyline of the sister. So you guys already know that I like that storyline. The sister having infertility issues, which I know is real life. And I dealt with a lot, as in not personally, but as a therapist in my primary care practice working with physicians. It was very, very hard. And then I myself as a therapist have that guilt because I have 4 kids. I mean, I think when I was, you know, working with them, I'm like, you know, this is something I've never experienced, but here I am a therapist. So that whole storyline really, really enjoyed. And I think it just got better as it went along and gosh, some of these side characters are really critical. And so her experience, even with her sister, who's the resident, I really enjoyed. There was that awkwardness. I thought it was so legit, like the younger sister going, I don't know what to say. This is so awkward. I empathize. But, you know, she's the older sister taking care of her younger sister. And then her deciding at the end, I'm going to say this because this is a spoiler, but I think it's okay. Where she decides she's going to stop trying. But, you know, sometimes emotionally you realize, I think it's okay. And that she had to come to peace with, and in my imagination, she's still coming to peace. We see a peace in the show, but you know, that takes work. So it continually, someone who's decided, you know what, I want it to be a mother the natural way. Maybe she involves later on, she might adopt. I mean, there's a lot of choices, right? Adoption, all this stuff. But for now, she's like, I'm going to be happy where I'm at. I think that was really refreshing to see. I was trying to think if there are other dramas where you see that. You usually see the happy ending. Oh, she got pregnant. That's actually what I thought was going to happen because I thought that's very the K drama way. But then it was actually very refreshing to see, also realistic where she couldn't conceive and decided to be at peace. And even those emotions of like people around her tiptoeing when they're having kids, that's all I see all that in real life today, right? People tiptoeing around certain issues because they feel bad. That makes sense. And so I relate to everything back in real life, what I see, even with my own life, with people tiptoeing, and I'm tiptoeing going, oh, I'm about to have a son graduate. Some people's kids haven't graduated, right? There's always that. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that emotion too for me too. Oh, thank you for that, Joanne. HP 1 and 2, yes, their friendship they were friends since medical school, if you remember. The residents met on day 1 of residency, so a little bit later in their medical career, and then you see them develop the friendship. But yes, I think Hospital Playlist was much more focused on their friendship, their own personal lives, and then the hospital cases and all that was part of it, but it was part of their lives. Where Resident Playbook was much like the title, the resident playbook of their life in the hospital, right? But still cool to see, and I think there is supposed to be a season 2. But anyways, I'm glad that it did well because there was such controversy with it even airing. I think there was some rumor that they would never air it because of what was happening in Korea. I especially loved when she shared her motherhood story with the anxious new mom patient. Ari, your words are only starting. Yeah. Oh, yes, that doctor, right? Oh, I grasped that too. Yeah, and someone actually brought this up to me, and actually in the back of my mind, the OBGYN unit, which is what they showed, basically birthing, and with Korea having the lowest birth rate at this point, was very interesting. That wasn't addressed in the drama, but you might kind of get why, because they're also, it's not controversial because it's actually legit, but it's a very sensitive topic. And so maybe they didn't want to go there. A few people brought that up to me, and I go, yeah, I agree. I didn't see that. There might have been one reference about like, it's so neat to see babies, but then I think it was just a general reference to see lives starting instead of lives ending. There was that moment there. And then I also really liked the one resident who had to deal with a patient that she thought was difficult and disliked, and then had to see her through to her end of life. That was a very good character arc with the patient and her own growth. So that represented her own growth. And I think that was cool to see. I'm glad they brought back some of that. That's one good thing. I do say that they can wrap things up. Sometimes they don't, but this one, I like them bringing that back. Someone saying here about the motherhood story. Yes, the doctor sharing about her own motherhood struggles. Like, I myself also share that with clients. Self-disclosing is important at certain times. There's also a boundary with that. Too much disclosing isn't good. Like, you don't want to do that either. But there are times I'm like, yes, I have kids too. I understand, you know what I mean? Or as a mom too, so I'll do that too. So there's some of that connection, and doctors, I think, can do that a little bit more, especially in situations like that. And it was just a mom just worried a lot, pre-pregnancy, pre-motherhood, worrying a lot, worrying about the future. Just, yeah, it was good. And actually, you know what made me, so I'm just going to share on a personal note. After watching that show, I was like, it is really a miracle of life to have a baby who's healthy. And I've had 4, knock on wood. So it's like, oh my goodness. So I thought about my own life going, I don't know if I could have handled the show when I'm pregnant, So it was nice to see afterwards, but realizing how there's so much involved, to even pregnancy, and then things that could go wrong and things that you go through. And that's what they showed. They showed tough cases too, and happy endings, but sometimes not so happy endings that were realistic. But yeah, so I just want to touch on that because I did actually overall enjoy the show, and then went back and watched Hospital Playlist. And then hubby and I were both like, oh, Hospital Playlist is so good. So highly recommend Hospital Playlist 1 and 2. I don't think I preferred either or. I liked both together. Okay, so that's my 2 deep dives, but then now I'm going to go through recommendations, but kind of deep dive why I'm watching these K-dramas. The first one is Second Shot at Love on Viki in the USA. And surprisingly, I started that, I hadn't planned to, but why did I don't know. I think I had some time, and I was like, let me play something, when you want to watch something because you have time. And then I actually so far. It's probably my favorite actually at the moment, maybe because I find it uniquely unique. Basically, they're highlighting her alcohol use and and then her fathers and her sisters, and how alcohol plays a huge role in Korean culture, you know that, and how she had to face some scenarios of it being there tempting her. But I thought what's interesting is I'm not quite sure she probably borders alcoholic, so she's in a healthy place. It might be different if we saw somebody who's in a really, really dire situation. But at first I was a little bit wary going, "Oh, are they gonna not make light of it, but how are they gonna do this?" But I actually what they're showing is not so much clinical medical, but they are, because the lead is a doctor. So he's helping her through it, but he's also her love interest, right? But you don't get so much of that clinical medical rehab, no. You're getting the very Korean way, which is through love and support and family. There is a boundary to that 'cause some people, that's not enough. You do need professional help. So I'm gonna say that. But what I like about this portrayal is still seeing that you can, because she's in a healthier place than some other people who struggle with alcohol use. I refrain from saying alcoholic because I quite don't see that, but it's still a big part of her life that she struggles with, and then she kind of turns to alcohol. Actually, we see that a lot in K dramas, but I guess hers was more, and they made that an issue. But it was like the townspeople all going, "I'm a part of that," and I'm okay with the portrayal right now. And I like seeing something different. So I thought it was unique. Again, highlighting kumju is the name of, by the way, kumju means like refraining from drinking. So it's very interesting, even their play on words and how you see the dad and father trying to be supportive. They make it funny. And I can see why some people, I had some people going, okay, but it could be triggering. I go, I could see that. Everything's always like multidimensional. I always see every angle, but I did still recommend this. And I'm like, I still think it's refreshing that you see a family going, you know what, you're right. We will support, though they might have less of a angst to turn to alcohol. They still want to totally help their daughter out or help their sister out. They're like, okay, we're not going to drink too. And you see their struggle, and it's a very societal thing. But you know what? I'm going to say this. When hubby and I are in Korea, like we drink less. Like people like I just think that is a little more old school, the drinking way. The new thing is people are much healthier and choose not to drink. So the people that I interact with in business and stuff drink less. And so I just want to make that clear because I'm like, you know what? They should start showing that, because most people are now saying, oh, no, I'm watching my calories. Whatever the reason is, I see it. The other thing is, no, the next day I have a meeting, and you know what? I only do it on the weekends now. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of like that. Oh, thank you for bringing that up. I am bringing that up because I'm like, in real life, I don't see it at all. Like, but that's maybe the situation or the circle I'm at. There's still Hweshiks, but not very Hweshik is that work dinner, much more rare. And even then, not everybody drinks. So there's a little bit less of that pressure that you still see in the K dramas. And I think that's just the older depiction. The mother's frustration in the drama. Thank you for bringing that up. The mother is the one. Well, then we saw something in the episode though. I won't bring it up the last episode, but the mother is the one going, please stop drinking. I'm tired of this, and I want you to turn over a new leaf, and I want you to be healthier. It wasn't so much that they are walking around drunk half the time that you may think that. It was more just she didn't like having that at all, and she was always worried about them, and she even shared that. I worry about my kids. I worry about my husband. I thought that was cool to see. And then there's some probably twists that we'll see with her and even the doctor. There's still some twists up ahead. I'm like, something's a little bit off, but still the whole story is about the drinking culture and how she's navigating herself. But her reasoning is, I want to be healthier, happier, and maybe cope better. I think there was that one scene where she didn't say cope, but that was my interpretation going, I'm not happy, or I feel like I could be healthier but I turned to this as this crutch. That was the innuendo. And then thank you, Linda, for the mother being part of that. And we'll see. And so again, a very family oriented drama. I would say still has the old school feel as some dramas do, and I like it. And so I do recommend that one. And so watch that and keep me posted. It's only halfway done. Okay, the next one, Tastefully Yours, fun watch, fun watch. Who doesn't like Kang Han-ho? I'm just saying Kang Han-ho looking so cute in that. Yeah, I've always liked him since Heirs. Was it Heirs when I first saw him? Or Inheritors? I think there's something earlier than that. Moon Lovers? No, Eris came first. But I think he's so cute. And people are like, he's overacting. I go, yeah, but he does overact. That's his kind of style, except in certain dramas. He does that. That's his thing. I think it kind of fits. What I want to talk about with this drama, because it's just such an easy, fun watch and makes you want to eat, is it highlights Chunju. And so I sometimes pause. We're pausing, going, wait, where is that? Where is that? There's some things we recognize, some things we don't. That doesn't mean everything's filmed in Chunju, because if you know now, you learn on my tours, not everything's filmed right there, but they're definitely highlighting the city of Chunju, which is great for the city of Chunju, which I would say is probably my favorite city. Yeah, maybe then it's Seoul, and then Busan, but I love Chunju. And so it has a very historic feel, but it's still modern. And the fact that it's set there, you do recognize it. You'll see people who've been on my tours recognize it. Don't you love that feeling when you recognize a set because you've been there? And so that's that. But then also the food, and just showing the care with anybody. We all love watching food and fascinated with the way they prep stuff, right? I even learned about, okay, so one thing I learned was the specialty kim seaweed. Had no idea. All of that. Hello, Sophie. Had no idea about the different kind of kim and high level kim. I just know that there's a specific plain seaweed kim for sushi, but I didn't know there was like high end like that. So I was like, oh, note to self, there is, that Nambu market is in the Chunju area. Then I'm thinking, do we need to add it to our tours? I'm always thinking that way. You never know. You may see that. So I do like that. Okay, but here's the other thing I have to highlight. Yoo Yeon Suk. Okay, Yoo Yeon Suk. Hello, leading man in the K-drama. I thought it was a brief cameo. He's like in 2 episodes and maybe more. That's unusual to have 2 leading men like that in a drama. Obviously, Kang Han-il, this is his drama, but I still think it's kind of cool. I love Yoo Yeon Suk so much. I'm like, oh, but it's like he's like the other person previous, you know what I mean? So it's funny. Just had to bring that up. Finding all the arguing tastefully yours a bit hard. Yeah, let me think. I mean, yes, I could see that. They're going back and forth. Let me think about that for a second. The arguing is harsh in dramas. You do see that. Some folks said they struggled with Reply 1988 because of some of the yelling. I still think that's a little bit old school. You don't really see that yelling in real life. So that's for drama's sake. So I could see that being annoying. Yeah. Yes, when the camellia blooms. Yes, when the camellia blooms. I think that's what you mean. Yes, he was so cute in that. And so I'm going to answer that a bit because I think in the beginning it was a little annoying. I see your point. Oh, and then I love the dinner scene with the French couple, French-Korean couple, Korean-French couple, where they have 2 different cultures coming. It was very relatable in professionally and personally when I see that, where there's people at odds with 2 different cultures and trying to find the right meal. And that meal, it just showed you how important it is, not just in the Korean culture, in any culture. When you get together for a meal, it's big. And so they showed a scene, if you haven't watched it, where a Korean man was going to marry a French woman, and they wanted to have this perfect dinner where their parents could meet because some parents couldn't eat this and then the dad couldn't eat it was like that, right? How to conjoin 2 cultures in a meal. And of course they did it beautifully, the meal, right? And then by the end, it was just, I think that was a very heartwarming scene, them bonding over dinner. Yeah, so that was in the latest episode. And so interesting. Yeah, Yoo Yeon Suk, leading man, he was in Hospital Playlist, Mr. Sunshine, When the Phone Rings, is in the show, and he's already like 1.5 episodes in. Like, you don't normally see that. So I recommend Tastefully Yours for something fun after Hodong. Yeah, Hodong was I watched it too. It was dark but very interesting, and I binged that one, and I thought it was good. Overall, I thought it was really good, and it was definitely dark, but I was thinking this. And I shared this before, I wouldn't watch that drama normally if I wasn't in the place I'm in today. I happened to be in the USA, a little bit of a less hectic schedule, so I watched it. But when you're in like a busy time in your life and there's certain things that may not be watchable to you, then that's an example how I knew that I wouldn't have watched that drama if I was in Korea. Does that make sense? When I'm much busier. That was a little bit, I could handle it at this moment. So I was okay watching that. Love the leads. And I just thought it was good chemistry. So I think the chemistry kept me going. Chemistry really does matter. Yeah. Food unites. It totally does across cultures. And it just shows you that it can also heal. So I'm not saying they were totally, I mean, the Korean man's father in that show, that brief episode was by himself, right? He looked like he was a single parent. He was by no wife there, no partner. And he softened up. And so I'm just saying it was a lot of emotion to that. And it was about the meal, but the connection to the food and then wanting to show the culture. And I love that he's like, how do you say this in French? Then you knew you were in a good spot when they are asking, how do you say this in your language? You know what I mean? So that was a good scene. So I do recommend that one too. Good fun watch. Okay. Yes, you need to balance something light. Yeah, definitely. Okay, what is the next K-drama rec? It's all good. I love that you're here, Lisa. Okay, Our Unwritten Soul. It airs today. I'm dying to watch it. You know why I like it? I was gonna watch for Park Bo Young. The other two male leads, I'll just be honest. Oh, they're okay. I know people are like, you don't like Jin Young. Just I was watching it for her. She's one of my favorite actresses. But then pleasantly within, I don't know, even the narration in the beginning, there was a monologue in the beginning shared by one of Park Bo Young's twin characters. I thought was very insightful. And then I was like, wait a second. This drama is maybe more, I don't know, more insightful than I thought, or maybe there's something more to it. I don't know why. I was just like, I'll just watch it. But that's me. So I was pleasantly taken aback by the depth of the identity narrative. And I'll answer some of your questions that comes to this, but I'm enjoying it at this moment. And I do like the fact that she plays two different twins and you see their lives unfold. And they already brought up certain issues already, like workplace bullying, workplace, I pause with saying abuse, workplace gaslighting all exists. They already brought that up. And even grief. So grief is in every drama. Grief is in every drama in all different forms. And I'll answer that in a second. So yes, I highly recommend this one. There's not much to say. It's only 2 episodes. Is it only 2 episodes, I think? So we will see more, but I recommend it. I would say it's in between romantic comedy and melodrama. It's not as heavy at this point. So it's in between that. So I recommend if you want to watch and you like Park Bo Young. So, okay, those are the things I think I recommend. Is there another one? K-drama watch list. Okay. Add Good Boy. Of course, I'm just saying that because I haven't even watched it. Well, you have Bo Gummy. Hello. And you know what? I loved him ever since. I mean, he was in so many, right? Reply 1988 is probably the first time, or was it Moonlight? Moonlight in the Clouds, maybe. But just after When Life Gives You Tangerines, he is the hottest thing. And then he's in that 23 seasons. Oh my gosh, I follow that. It's the singing show. Sorry, him hosting it, the music show. That is a great show, by the way. So half the time I'm watching that. I really enjoy it. And he's the host for this season, and he's so good and so talented. So I think it gives him a chance to show off his chops. He wanted to be a singer. That was his initial thing. So I feel like he's going back to that a little bit now. So he's in Good Boy. It seems like a really good story. And so I definitely want to highly recommend. I'm just saying that now. It's on my K-drama, on the top of my K-drama watch list. And then I hear such good things about him. Bo Gummy, Park Bo Gum in the industry. I will ask blunt questions to people. I'll be like, yeah, how is he really? Tell me about this person. I go, it's okay, it'll stay here, you know? And so yes, things I won't share. But then I just heard when I hear certain things about somebody, I'm like, I see. So what we see is what we see, right? So that he is one of them. Just saying. I just had to share. If you have Vicky, oh, okay, thank you. Haunted Palace, you have mentioned that. You guys have mentioned Haunted Palace. So I have not, I don't think it's on my current watch list. Sorry. I will, who's in it? Maybe it's, okay, I get drawn by certain people I want to watch, but I guess if it's recommended enough, I will have to check it out after I see the new episodes of Today and Good Boy. There's a lot I'm watching. It's like I'm catching up now. Oh, by the way, you know the saying in Korea, if you're in Korea, you watch less dramas. You do, because I won't stream them as much because I want to watch them live on TV, and they're late night, like 9:50, 10 o'clock p.m. And then by then you're like so exhausted. So I watch a little bit less, but this summer, as we're in Korea, I'll hope to watch more. I'm trying to support the ratings in Korea. So I don't want to stream them when I can support it live. Watched No Others and currently finishing the divorce insurance. Yeah, how's the divorce insurance? Oh, you love content. He inspired you to take piano lessons? Wow. I will say, you know what? Actually, I don't think you knew this, but I was actually a pretty good pianist. Yeah. So I it sometimes when I see that, it wants to bring it back. But here, side note, because piano was such a stressor for me, like it was. If you read my memoir, you kind of get why. It was, at one point, as advanced of a pianist I was competing in things. It became such a stressor that I didn't play for years. Actually, I haven't played for years. I did teach my kids piano. So here's one thing, because I knew piano so well, I was their piano teacher early on for the first two kids. And then the third kid, I was like, I'm too tired. So then, I hired someone to teach them. But I taught my daughter and son until they needed to move on to a more advanced level. So I was at that level, like I can teach piano. But yeah, I do see it and I go, I could play that. When I see them play, I'm like, I can play that. And my kids, not me, my kids have perfect pitch. My daughter and my son, oldest kids, because we're a musical family, they have perfect pitch, so they can hear a song and play it. Can you believe that? I was not blessed with that. No. So all my kids play, but when I do see people play the piano, even when I see RM, doesn't matter, whoever I see, I'm like, I could do that too. So sometimes I think that way, but again, it was such a source of stress, kind of backed off from there. And then in Korea, there's really no place to play. Here I do. I have a piano here. Honda Plus, good. Okay. My daughter's a PA for a large junket company. I ask her questions all the time about the talent she has. See? Yeah, you're curious. Hi from Manila. Hello. Oh, hi, Marion. Good to see you. I visited Manila recently. It's like at the top of my list of one of my favorite places. Like I want to go back. I love the love for K culture there and just love the feel, and it's very islandy feel. So thank you. It was just nice being there for my book talks. So I digress. That's what I'm watching, and did not see Divorce Insurance. I don't even think that's on my list because there's so much other things to watch. And I will say, when I want to comfort, I tend to rewatch older dramas. So let's go to the questions because there were such good questions that had to do with this. Hi, hello from Illinois. Yay. What are some series that you watch over for those feel good vibes to lift you? Okay. I easily turn to Reply 1988. That is something we actually even have playing. I think I shared this with you in the background when I'm cooking or something. I'm like, oh, just Reply 1988 because now I know I literally can like do all the quotes and know everything. That to lift me up, believe it or not, yes, it's my top favorite, My Mister. People are like, what? I go, yes, I do. I'll just turn on the latter episodes and just play it and then sit there, pause, and forget what I'm doing. I think just because I know the story inside out, and My Mister has done it for me. That drama is actually, I told you, the base of the title of my book, the transformation in people, and I love the final episode. What hubby and I will do, we'll watch the final episode of dramas that we like, just cause in between things. So hospital playlist. That's why we're watching episode 12. We're like, let's watch episode 12. Let's watch episode 16 of My Mister. Let's watch episode 20 of Reply 1988. I listed those. I also wrote this down. When Life Gives You Tangerines, episode 4 and 13. I recently turned those to God, I can't talk. Those two episodes to. I was also working, but I wanted to watch something uplifting, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember episode 4 was really good. When Life Gives You Tangerines. Play. So I will even have episodes. So you might want to keep those lists of like episode something. I wrote episode 13 of When Life Gives You Tangerines because Kim Sono is so cute, and I did watch his. I could also recite his lines in that episode. So I rewatched those. Those are the most modern ones. Hometown Cha-Cha, I think I've literally counted 14 times because we see it on my tour. And then I'll also play it as well, some background. It's easy watch. Oldies and goodies is what I wrote down. So when I really want to feel like when I had COVID in 2022, I shared this. I went through the older dramas from 2011 to 2013 to rewatch, specifically Our Greatest Love. So I do tend to go back to the oldie goodies because they were early on in my motherhood life and they comforted me. You're going to ask which ones. I do love Coffee Prince. I do love Our Greatest Love. They're on my top 20. Our Greatest Love, Absolute joy. Master Son, it's about ghosts, but the overall arching love story and narrative is terrific. Um, I hear your voice. I listed that one as a feel good vibe. These are from 2011 to 2013. There were some gem of dramas during that time that I think date well. So I highly recommend those. So those are on my list to answer that question. Yeah. Okay, next one. Would love to hear your perspective on twins being completely different, like in our written soul, our unwritten soul. So I don't think they're that different. I think twins are very much connected, and I've seen it in real life where some go to every class together, even go to college together, but they have different personalities. So I think that's what you mean, the different personalities. Oh, let me pause on that to talk about this new intimacy coordinator in Korea. Yeah, that came out of right. There's a lot of controversy there and just how things were done in the past, intimate scenes, and now they have that. And I think there, if you want to Google it, I did see some articles, but I think that's good to have. I mean, I read about it, and I think particularly now in just to have the boundaries of work in Korea, they're a little bit behind than like maybe Hollywood and stuff. So this is I think that's really important that they have like a neutral person looking out for the actors, actresses. Yeah. So I wanted to at least respond to that. The old ones, yeah, and you know what's so funny? When I said to somebody, "Yeah, I love 2011," and then they were like, "What? That's so old." I go, "Is it?" 2011 doesn't sound so old. I guess it does with all the current content today. But I do recommend you watch them because they have a different feel. Maybe less, like I said, this is before K-dramas went global. So it's a very homey feel to me that show the same themes and messages that you love today. And so a lot of the ones on KBS and SBS, which were the ones I go back to. So those are my oldie goodies. Our unwritten soul, I don't think they're very much different. You're talking personalities. I do think that the twins will have different personalities, but there are some huge connections, right, in real life, and we're only beginning to see it. But even now, they're discovering that they really don't know each other because they made assumptions based on their own external personalities. Like one's more outgoing, but one's more introverted. You see that all the time in families, and then that's misunderstood. But siblings, I guess, have a different connection. I think twins have a very, very strong connection, especially identical twins, So I tend to see families raising them to be very close, do the same things. And I don't disagree either way. I feel like if the twin wants to separate and have different classes, do it. But if they want to stay together, do it. So I wanted to share this, my answer to this, because it's still early to tell, but I do think it's okay that twins' personalities are completely different, but they may have the same perspectives. And actually, what you're beginning to see is them uncovering. I guess we're seeing years of them not being as close, but then they were close, and each still had a connection to the other. I'm kind of being vague because one was a little more sick twin who only wanted to see her twin. So there is that connection that I think very much exists in like a real life twin scenario. But I think twins can have and should have their own interests and personalities. But at the same time, don't discourage them that they're doing everything together because that's a huge, I don't know, that's kind of cool if you have a twin and you're best friends. So that's my answer to that. I think it's my perspective is I think that's healthy to see if they have different personalities. But again, that doesn't mean they're completely different. Does that make sense? I feel like we're going to see them have more and more of the world schemas. That's what we like to say in psychology. Their values and all that kind of aligned. That's my thinking. Yeah, she hasn't gotten hired. Okay. Yeah, that's brand new, right? Well, I'm glad it's coming out because obviously there's some controversy coming out. So any kind of societal change is good. Hello. That's why my clinical practice is called Your Change Provider. I provide change. So I love seeing things happening based on what's going on in the industry. That's my question. Oh, hearing people call themselves old at 60. You know what? I've heard that, but then I'm with friends we just went out with dinner with friends last night. They're actually our closest friends. And they actually say we're closer to their kids' age, but then yet we don't feel that. So they're in their latter 60s, and I forget their age. And they are the ones that say, you mean young at 60? I'm like, you're right. So it's all a matter of perspective. So I do think it could bother you, but maybe that's how they're feeling, Reality is subjective, right? So it's like maybe you're 60 and you feel old. If you feel that way, then it comes out of your narrative. Like, I feel old, so I'm going to say I'm old. But I'm 51 and I feel like I'm 51. Oh my gosh, I feel like saying 31. Then I feel like that comes across. Does that make sense? So this is me just wanting to tell you, that's up to you how you want to frame aging. And I agree with you. There is always this negative or stigmatic aging. Well, I think we're always going to have that. It's also similar in Korea. It's here in the US. It's everywhere, right? And it's all a matter of perspective because aging, yes, some things don't work as well. Like I used to be able to run 15 hours every day in a week. I kid you not, 15 hours, sorry. 15 miles, like a half marathon. I think I did that just in the last 10 years and then I had to stop. So things change. So that's true. Your body, you know how you say your body might go a little bit first before your mind, but your mind can always stay healthy and young, you know? Yeah, you are only as old as you think you are. Totally. Like, I don't care. In fact, I think when people mistake me as mid 30s, yeah, someone said that the other day, maybe because I feel that way. And then I actually surprise myself when I say, yeah, actually, no, I'm not 35. But isn't that good? So it's all perspective. My body reminds me not always. And I feel like that's okay. I say it like that. I go, my body sometimes reminds me I'm not 35, but I don't feel that way. Our brains keep evolving. You know, you got to feed that brain. Um, and here's the other thing, how someone says their age, don't hurt them by saying, oh my gosh, stop saying you're old. You know, you're friends with them. You can be like, okay, you might want to uncover that. Why do they keep saying that? Maybe that's how they're feeling. Maybe they're feeling sick. So there's always something there. But yes, there's at any age. By the way, there's not a negative image just to aging. There's negative images to Gen Zs. I hear that from, and I have Gen Zs, right? Gen Z kids. I have people who are like, yeah, Gen Zs, they're just not resilient enough. And I'll be like, why do you think that? I always ask that. I go, I actually disagree because I work with them and they actually ask some very insightful questions and challenge me. They just have boundaries or different school of thought when it comes to work. That doesn't mean they want to work less. They just won't take as much, right? Where the older generation, including my generation, we're like worked our butts off. And so even it surprises me, I work with Gen Zs. I have Gen Zs on staff and I'm like, oh, interesting. Did you just say that to me? But I'm joking. But there's always that perception at any generation. Oh, millennials, right? I heard that the other day. Somebody on my tour, I love her. I said something like, oh, the Gen Z over there is taking photos. She's like, hello, I'm a millennial. It was so funny that moment. And I went, okay, sorry, you're a millennial. But there's always that perception, regardless of what generation. Though I personally think Gen Xers are kind of cool because I'm almost 67. My kids say I'm not old. I am doing things for me now. Learning is ageless. Definitely. My colleagues are in their 20s and early 30s. We make it work. We always have connect. You make it work. You work, especially if you're in the workplace. Yeah, that's why generational mental health, something I always study and talk about, is very important to understand. How you see your own experiences in your own cycle of life, season of life, very different than someone who just started the workplace or looking for a mentor. You may be ready to mentor. So that is all actually the circle of life, stage of development in psychology, rooted in psychology, where we have stages that we want to do different things in our lives. So it's important to understand. But yes, I had to answer that because you go ahead and still feel young. I mean, like I said, like I feel like, do I really have a daughter that just got engaged? Do we really, like, you know what I mean? And then my 18-year-old makes me feel like I am a mother of an 18-year-old. So it's all different. It's how you see things. Now, what did Lisa never grow up? Over 60, feel and act much younger. Maybe I have to grow up. Yeah. What does that mean anyway? Now that we're older, we can say that. When we're in our 20s, we're like, when I grow up, it's a joke, but I've said that to my friends who are like in their 80s. When I grow up, I hope I'm like you. It's a good joke, but I feel like we will always grown up. How do you describe grow up early? We're always learning. And now these days, people are getting PhDs in their 60s, starting billion-dollar empires at 55. I'm just saying that the world is endless if you want to do it. There's always a hope to do something different and change, right? And yes, take that advice. Awesome. I'm not growing old, not me. Yeah. So you know why this came up? Because I hear a lot these days of people making fun of each other based on age. That's why I'm addressing it, because I dislike that too. Okay, keep going because I think there's more questions on this. Being seen as lazy, because people think, okay, so this is, you guys indicated this when I asked about labels. Being seen as lazy, people don't think I work hard just because I don't work the same way others do. This really hit me too. I am now an entrepreneur. I don't go into a specific office where traditionally people are like, how come you don't go into an office? I'm like, because I don't need to. Like, as in, I don't need to. I could literally work off my phone or laptop. You don't need to be in a setting. I could be at a cafe, right? We work very differently in 2025. And keep saying that. So if someone says you're lazy or you feel like they think that, then I think I wanted to answer this a little on, but I'm going to answer it here. How you present your work or your belief in that work is very important. People will continue to say, Jeannie, that's interesting. That's what you do. Like you use K-dramas mental health. I still get that. And then how do I respond? Now I could respond like, well, yeah, because and sound defensive, which I used to because I was a little like, oh my goodness, they're making fun of me. Now it just took a lot of time and years and experience to go, yeah, you don't know about K-dramas and mental health. I can be sarcastic. So do it in your own way of like, yeah. So it's because now I can work from home and I get double the amount done, including home stuff where I put something in the laundry and then I'm on a call. I mean, it's how you say it. This is where confidence in your own work style is very important. So if you're not feeling confident about what you're doing, then people will keep going, yeah, interesting. How do you stay productive? There's always going to be people who do that, you know? I look sis to the right. Thank you, because I feel it, you know? So yeah, I got to prep for that. I'm trying to think, how should I do my hair? Okay. You went to an Epic High concert with my 30-year-old. I love see, that's so cool. I work with a lot of folks that will actually, because I work in corporate, they're like, yeah, BTS and 17 and Stray Kids, they're for younger kids. I always maintain professional, especially if I'm personal, because I could probably give you a look like, did they just say that? Now I just go, actually, no, you know, based on research, you'll see quite a bit of Gen Xers and baby boomers who go to these K-pop concerts. You should go to one. So I say it like very joking. And then there's now lately someone in the audience going, yeah, I'm 55 and I just, whatever. There's always someone who's like, I just went to a K-pop concert. I just went to a Stray Kids concert last week. There's always going to be people like that. And there's a question there I wanted to, you know, there's a label of that. How old do you need to be to enjoy something or fangirl? Never. There's no age to that. When you're younger and have young children, I didn't get to do what I wanted to. Now I am. Thanks for bringing that up. And so I did have my kids a little, it's so funny. They were like, you're so young, but I used to say, oh yeah, was I? But now I'm like, I don't think I was that young back in the day in the 90s. That was just when we had kids. Maybe I was younger, but I had 3 kids by the time I was 30. So I want to say maybe that's a little younger. So I have a little bit more energy now as they're older to do more things. And you guys know my life looked very different like 15 years ago, maybe more like 20 years ago, where I was like, what day is it? No, I mean, so I put a pause on my career. So I'm bringing that up. All your whole different reality of how you look at your work must be rooted in your own confidence on why you're doing it, or you will get comments and people continually say that because they feel like they can. So people have now stopped. Actually, now I know I don't get any. I'll get my audience members, but not like colleagues saying, "So you use K-dramas?" And more recently, you talked about this lyric. Interesting. Now I don't get that because I think they feel my passion and confidence. So very important. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Oh no, you went to CN Blue. The whole thing, you can't be older and love K-pop. Yeah, I'm going to address that. As a person who lives with mental illness and chronic fatigue, I've learned that my pace doesn't match the stereotype of what is productive, but I'm not lazy. I just run on a different level. Love to see you here. My mom, 85, is our family's BTS Army member. Yes. So, you know what? One of these days, you should just send me your pictures and I'll post them all to everybody when you're at a concert, because that can get irritating for anybody who's like, oh, like you're going to go to that concert? Like you're like 70, you know, it's irritating, right? Okay. Let me answer this one. I'm told I'm cold because I have walls up. As a trauma survivor, I need walls. It hurts to be told that I'm cold. Totally. Who wants to be told that they're cold? That's very hurtful. I wanted to bring this up that as a trauma survivor, that is very hard. That's your narrative, right? How you have navigated that trauma and how your life looks today post trauma and how you're continuing to navigate that. One thing I did want to bring up is maybe we reframe that. That's what people are telling you. You're cold because you have walls up. You actually, I wouldn't say you need walls. You need boundaries. We don't necessarily want walls. Walls are like, when the whole saying of hitting a brick wall, not going anywhere, it hurts. A wall can kind of block you from happy things too. And just experiences that I want you to see. So I'd rather you not have walls. Maybe they can be transparent blinds, but they're just think of reword that or reframe it and say, I need boundaries. Yeah. And people go, yeah, you have some walls, and be like, okay, maybe they're walls to you, but they're like my boundaries that are in place to keep myself safe and to make sure that I am taking care of myself, because this is my story and you know my story, whoever you're talking to. So always important to have your own narrative in your mind written down, and you can say it in like 30 seconds and you say it in your own way. But that's what I wanted to say this. I go, yes, that it seems like you have walls, but I'd rather you have boundaries and maybe transparent, those transparent blinds, so you could still see and decide when you're going to lift them up and look at them or enjoy them. Does that make sense? Because I want you to see your life in front of you and enjoy it, but make sure you keep the distance you need to. So I just said that. That was an advice on how you might want to reword that. And then even tell people, okay, especially if you know them, they're like, okay, that hurts that you think I'm cold. But maybe example of, but this was really difficult for me. This is what I went through. And so maybe that's what you're feeling. But you and I are close, so I had to share that with you. So maybe you could just, and then there are times that they may say that they think you're cold, because here's a little flip side. Maybe they want to get closer to you and then they can't. That happens too, especially when you have walls. So maybe it's like, okay, they ask this person, you can ask, why do you think that? We tend to get defensive, but you could say, when was an example? Okay, put it in their boat. When is an example of when you felt like I was totally cold? I just need to know. So, because you and I have a relationship now, somebody you don't really care for or not very close, you don't have to ask those questions. You can answer it the way I gave you as an example. Does that make sense? But I just wanted to reframe that just a bit. You know what I'm missing? Some of these US concerts, because the dates don't align when I'm here. So I'm like, I have to see everything in Seoul now, just saying. And do you know what I'm going to say? Seeing concerts in Seoul, triple the amount of hard work to get in, because you're only allowed one ticket and it's like competition. So the Rose, which I know they're on tour and I saw them a few years ago, Day 6, I would totally go to. And then who else mentioned somebody? Was it ATs or Stray Kids? Oh, someone just said, I'm 56, Gen X. But my 34-year-old stepdaughter says I'm a millennial because I grew up with a home computer. My family got an Apple computer in 82. That's so funny. I guess technically it'd still be a Gen X, but with age-wise, but maybe she's saying you think like a millennial, which is great, right? And so I like the compliments I get. They're like, I always actually have to give my age because people quite don't know my age. They think I'm younger than I am. So I'm like, no, I'm your age, or actually I'm older. And I say that because I want them to understand that I understand their perspective, but I also get the young folks' perspective. We all have to understand both, work with both. And you might know because you have grandkids or kids. Okay. Hopefully that answered that question. I have to keep remembering my walls have to have zippers on them. Oh, that's a very good analogy too, zippers. As long as you could see. The whole thing is to be able to see even the bad and the good, the ugly, the pretty, the beautiful. You still need to be able to see it, or there's an avoidance. That makes sense? Okay, too white to be Latina. Someone said this. Yeah. You'll get that. I still get that. Really? Like you're too American to be Korean. You're too Korean to be American. You still get that. You get that a little bit less, but it's implied. No one's going to say it flat out like they did in college, but now they're more like, really? Really? That's what you think? I went, oh my gosh. I mean, there are a couple times I'm like, yeah, because I live in America. You know what I mean? As a joke, or the opposite. When they're like, oh, really? Like, this is what you thought? And I went, yeah, because I'm Korean, And so I think that's always there. And then you give your narrative. So I have my own responses. You should have your own response. And just, you might come across defensive, but sometimes who wouldn't be when someone goes, yeah, you're too white to be this, right? Or you're too Korean. You're too Korean. What do you mean? You don't know what you're talking about. I go, oh yeah, you know what? I lived here 54 years, right? So it's kind of like that. And so again, I'm teaching like those narrative techniques of how you need to be firm in your own. You cannot be confident sharing if you don't know yourself, how you're feeling about your own identity. That's why I always talk about mental health and identity. So do you want to be identified this way? How do you say it? You hear from my words, bicultural, Korean American, second generation Korean American. You hear all this in my language because that's how I present myself, to be clear. And then I clarify when people are like, but this is what I thought second generation is. I go, no, that is the technical definition, but I identify this way because I was practically born here. So things like that, right? I look white, but of American Mexican descent. Yes. And so, and you say it proudly because I know you. And so that confidence comes across. I wish there was a better word for confidence, but you know what I mean? You have to be proud, even if there are things that you're not proud of in your culture. Let me say it that way. Just because there are things that you don't like about your culture or city or country or whatever, doesn't mean you're not proud of who you are. Does that make sense? There's the multi layers. You don't have to love everything. I make it clear on things I dislike, even when I'm in Korea. I'm like, okay, I don't like being treated like this because I'm a woman. I think I say that half the time, because of the just patriarchy that I'm faced with. I make it very clear, but then clearly I love the culture. So you can have that, but it's all in how you feel related to yourself, that belongingness to yourself. You're going to get that. You may be defensive and even come across defensive, but have an answer for that. I'm 56. My daughter calls me your concert ride. Going to see Stray Kids, Jin, The Rose, and Hyphen this year. And so excited about it. It's such a great night out and so uplifting. Yeah. And I think I shared, I could count on my hands how many K-pop concerts I've gone to. I'm not big on concerts. Like, it's so funny for an extrovert. I do get pretty overwhelmed. I'm like, oh my gosh, where's the ticket booth? It's weird. It's like how I get. And then when I'm there, obviously I enjoy it. And that's the extrovert in me, but I will pick and choose. And yeah, I'm going to miss BTS. And I would go to Stray Kids if it was here and worked out with my schedule. And The Rose. And Hyphen and 17. Okay. Anyways, I know they're fun and they're bonding. Okay. Other labels: too family focused from a boss, too sensitive from the same boss. That's tricky. Because they'll say things, right? And if you're a boss, you kind of might relate. You don't mean to say things like this or think this. I guess them labeling that as maybe their own selfish wants of what they want from you. They're like, oh, we see this person too preoccupied in family. We need this person to be focused on this. So that's like a very selfish thought, right? And that is very annoying. And actually, at the end of the day, I think I've shared this before. The biggest regret I'll always hear. I never hear things like, I didn't make enough money. You have regrets of like wanting to give your family more and wish you had more money for that, but not ever. I regret that I didn't work enough and become a CEO. I never hear any of that. You hear the biggest regret is I didn't focus on my family enough, or gosh, I really wish I could have had better relationships with my siblings and my partner or my family, whatever, my parents, I always hear that. So with that comment, the best response is maybe nothing, because sometimes you could just let it lie and let them continue to fester. And like, you pick your battles. Definitely pick your battles when it comes to work, because you can't pick every battle. It's very stressful. But then when the time comes, you prove, oh yeah, I definitely, not to, you can say, oh, I definitely focus on my family, which is why I'm very proud that my kids are here and doing this, but I'm also doing this at work and I'm a director of HR. And does that make sense? Both. You could share both, that you're able to manage a high level at work, but also have a high level family. By the way, both are difficult. There are times that there'll be compromise. You know that, right? Like, that's why working parenting is very difficult. It's like some days are better than others. Sometimes I've dropped the ball on sending notes or paying something, going, oh, I forgot to pay that fee. You're going to have that. But I don't think there's ever such thing as being too family focused. That's kind of sad. From a family therapist, there is times when you will be less focused, as in a specific season of life, because you're able to work and the kids don't need you as much. But overall, that should be a high, I guess, number one of your whole relationships in life, right? Your family and how you perceive your family. Really important. Too sensitive. Oh my goodness. I think I shared that before. Well, I don't know. One time I told someone to say it back because they were in this position. I remember thinking, what have I said to people in some of my therapy sessions and coaching? I think I've said things like, why don't you say it right back? And this person had the relationship do that, being like, well, you're sensitive too, actually, when blah, 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 and give examples. So people just shell that out, probably because they didn't want you to disagree, right? When you show some dissonance or dissension or something like, I don't agree with this. This makes me really frustrated. Yeah, you will continually actually get that. I don't think I can ever tell you someone's not going to say that to you. Someone will always say that if you're being firm and honest on how you're feeling about something, and it's something that they don't want to hear. And so my response to this is not to say, oh yeah, How do we stop that from happening? I just think you need to continue. The only thing you can work on is you and how you build your own boundaries of like, the next time you hear that, what are you going to do? The next time you hear that, what are you going to show them? Or if you continue to hear that, will you address it? That's every scenario is different, but you may continue. I hear, let me tell you my label. It's not here on this one. Maybe similar. You're too perfectionistic. You're too type A. Do you know that I started saying that too, going, yeah, being too type A. And then I went, wait a second. There is, of course, some balance. You don't want to be too much of something that is too much that you're trying to be in control so much that it's anxiety ridden. But I'm smart enough to know, okay, actually I am type A, but that's how I've gotten here, and how I do things is my own way. But I do know when to back off if I feel like I'm overwhelmed and I'm being too focused on it. And so I myself found that getting that label with people who work with me or people have said that, I kind of bought into it. So when I started buying into it and I didn't quite agree, that is where you will get distressed. So the whole point is, if you don't agree and it's distressing you, which is why I'm thinking that you're sharing this, then again, work on yourself first. How do I face someone who keeps telling me this? You can't change the other person. You can only change how you can approach something. So it always comes from you. So even myself going, I know I'm type A, and I address that, but you know what? Otherwise we wouldn't have this, and this. And then I just know I have to take care of myself when I get that way. Okay, next one. I live with 2 chronic illnesses, and I've heard a lot of hurtful things, labels from strangers, family, friends, and even doctors. That's sad. I'm wondering what the label is from doctors. It's always hard. Sometimes doctors get a little bit like medically, like, clinical, going, oh, since you have post-traumatic stress, or, and they'll say that and it kind of gets wearing. So I could see that. But if you have strong enough relationships with these people and it's hurtful, the best kind of thing, which is very difficult, is to confront. Not confront in a mean way. Say things like, it really bothers me that you keep saying this. Why do you say it? Because here, look at the way I'm living. I don't make this it's a part of my life, but it's not part of my daily narrative. You have to be ready to say those things. So when someone complains to me and I'm saying, okay, so how are you going to say it? If you look at me like, I don't know, then I would challenge you to say, well, no, I need you to have a response because it's hurting you. And it says strangers, let me pause on that. Friends and family, you could. Doctors, I think that's a tough one. I mean, I get bothered by doctors too. So unless I have a friendship with them, I'll just let it lie. Because they're doctors. They're just going to say medically what they know. Some are better than others. Some are worse than others. But strangers, yes, I think it's hurtful. But here's where you also pick your battles. How often do you interact with these strangers? There are times when I feel like I need to, like you see me like on edge about to like fight a stranger or an acquaintance. And then I went, okay, this is probably not worth my distress because I'm not going to interact with them on a regular basis. That's what I'm asking you. If it's a regular basis acquaintance, then you might need to address your own way of presenting. I do, and I shared that, but here's what I'm doing and I'm fine. And I would, and I think sometimes some person even said to me once that they said, I'd appreciate if we could just not let this be the forefront because and then everyone's like, you're right, you're doing great. So just say it in your own way, but nothing's easy. I'm sorry, when I say these conversations, it's not going to be fun and it's not going to be, hi guys, I just want to say that I'm really hurt by this. No, it's going to be hard, but this is my urging to you. What do you want to do in that situation? What's your best case? Visualize that scenario and then work through it. And that's my best advice to you. Yeah. But chronic illnesses, you could live very well with a chronic illness. By the way, you can live very well with a mental illness. With the mental illness diagnosis, sometimes I don't even know. I'm just going to be clear. You don't know how that person's living because they live so well. So it's very important. Everything's treatable, except for things like cancer diagnoses, right? That we're trying to find a cure for. But yeah, everything is always manageable. How you do it is how people perceive it. So again, go back to you first. What can I do to show people this is not part of my daily narrative? Narrative, I like using that word. What's your daily story? Okay, next one. I think there are a couple more. People believing that once you become a certain age, you can't enjoy things. We talked about this, and labeled as childish. Again, you're not going to change someone's mind. Let's just toss that out. No one, you cannot go, yeah, I would love to have the right answer for somebody who tells me I'm childish. I'm sorry. No. But what you can do is, again, show your joy and happiness. And honestly, some people say childish because they're a little envious. I say that a lot, actually. I see a lot of envy, FOMO, like going, oh, I don't know anything about the rose, but they sure look they're having fun. So I'm just going to say they're being childish, right? So there's a lot of envy out there. Misery loves company. That's the quote. I don't hear happy loves happy people happy. You know what I mean? I wish there was a quote out there that's like, you know what? Yeah, if you're happy, then people are like, that's so cool. But there's the opposite. So just know that. And as long as you're happy and your family, and it's like great. And by the way, if it's your family, that's tough too. Then be like, oh, but yeah, but you want to come along, see how happy I am? Show your happiness. Sound sarcastic. Do it in your own way. There are so many times I'm like, yeah, I do watch that. And then they'll be like, do you watch everyone? I have family that also criticize me going, do you watch every drama? Like you have no time. I go, do I look like I watch every drama? No. I mean, so I do my own sarcastic way. You'll get that in any sort of scenario. Again, find the confidence. You love the rose. You love going to these concerts with your kids. They may see you have such good relationships with your kids. Bring it up. Throw it in their face, actually going, yeah, that's why me and daughter are so close now. You've seen that. We go to this. That's our fun thing to do. Do you have something fun with your daughter? Okay, that's me being mean. But you know what I'm saying? Yes, you can do the same. I'm just asking you not to let it get to you so much that they are the ones defining your experiences. Again, you be in control. So actually half the time you're asking me this is probably because you don't say anything. So now I'm asking you to say something in your own way. Yeah. Okay, next. Or is that the last one? Okay, maybe that's the last one. Okay. Oh wow, we went a long time. Okay, so I think did we have one more on grief? You know what? Even if I don't see it, I'm going to answer this one. Someone asked about the best K-drama when it came to grief. Yes, I think that's what I was waiting for. Here are my choices. You could write it down. I wrote it down because grief, there is no one K-drama that shows it the best way. Grief is very difficult. Did I say that before? Yeah. Grief. Heavenly Ever After showed a very different angle on grief, whether it's your own grief of your life choices, your own grief of a trauma that you didn't face, right? I talked about this. A grief of a husband this was so emotional, wanting to give his wife a better life, all that. So that Heavenly Ever After, I love Dear My Friends. Unfortunately, I searched this morning if it's in the US. I haven't seen it. But I had to still recommend it if there's a way to see Dear My Friends, the aging population, their story and their grief of something typical as age, but they don't feel that, right? We all feel that. We all feel like we don't feel the age, but maybe physically there's some reminders. Move to Heaven. That's a good one. It shows a very another perspective of someone's legacy post their death and how people process it. But really, really good look at grief. Crash Landing on You. Okay. The reason why I start Crash Landing on You is because I still use the example of the mother when the daughter was grieving, the North Korean daughter of hers was grieving. You remember that scene? Very well done scene where she just needed her mother to be at that very moment. The mother met her where she's at. And in the very next scene, you see the daughter empowered. That is an example of what I've seen where a family support or friend can get you going. You're still grieving. That doesn't mean you forgot the grief, but you're like, okay, I snapped out of it. Let me get out of bed and do this. I'm still grieving, but I can get out of bed today. That's what you saw in Crash Landing. Be melodramatic. She asked for help in her grief. That's also called Mellow Is My Nature. Really good drama. 39. You see grief all throughout different ways. It was gripping. Someone grieving even their own diagnosis. So much of that. And it's all Tubi. Okay. I don't think I have Tubi, but yeah, get Tubi. And then that's 39. When Life Gives You Tangerines, she's constantly grieving her mother. How does she live past that? The legacy her mom left her. And then some. It's a grief even in Kwanshik, the father, the middle-aged father, grief of a life that he thought he could give his wife. There's all that, but they're all navigating through different ways of grieving. The Atypical Family, I shared this recently because I really do like the way they showed very hard look at grief and him having to face his own demons, the main lead, Chung Gi-young. And then I also put Castaway Diva because I remember the singer and I made a note to go back to some of my notes. Her grieving, I guess, the life or like the celebrity life that, or like her own singing career. It was a different look. That doesn't mean you might relate to a singing career, but you might relate to, I don't know, someone who was at one point doing this and doing something different and had to pivot in life. And that's Castaway Diva. And then Daily Dose of Sunshine. She grieved very specifically the grief that you would see that's physical, as in a loss of patient, right? How did she deal? And then she went down a very dark spiral. This is the main lead, Park Bo Young, and you see her navigate that. But it was all part of grief of what she couldn't do, what she wished she could have done, grief of not, maybe how she felt the guilt. There's a lot of that. And then someone also asked me about getting over guilt and how that is with guilt over trauma. Oh, what show? Okay, I think I answered that. Grief. There is no one show. I gave you like 10 shows. I said, Heavenly After, Dear My Friends, Move to Heaven, Crash Landing, 39, Be Melodramatic, When Life Gives You Tangerines, Atypical Family, Daily Dose, Castaway Diva, and there's many more. By the way, give me your thoughts, because I know some people have told me a drama that helped them, and I wasn't even thinking their perspective of grief. So there's a lot with grief. I think because this is my first life, help somebody with their pet loss. And then there is another one, a question. Hold on, let me pull that up. Producer, is there a question up there? Hold on a second. Oh, how to get over grief. Yes. Oh, K-drama induced trauma aftermath. Such a thing. Yes. K-dramas could trigger any kind of trauma. So if that's the case and it's too hard, you could stop watching. That's not avoidance. That's a show. I'm not asking you to avoid the trauma itself. I want you to get help for that or address that in your real life. But you can stop watching a show that triggers that and brings up unpleasant things for sure. But then if you feel like, oh, it brought up something, let me keep watching. I had somebody who continued to watch When Life Gives You Tangerines to help them, and they watched it, even though it was very difficult, but then they found the experience healing. So there's two ways of me sharing that to you, but there, I want to say there is a such thing. Any show or any person can even induce a trauma. Actually, even another experience bring you back to that trauma. Yeah. The Glory helped me with grief trauma. Yeah, even the grief. Actually, you're not one of the one. Someone actually told me this week that the grief helped me. I go, really? I mean, the Glory helped me. I go, the Glory? And then they told me, and I said, well, yeah, I could see that with specific traumas, suicide, whatever that is. And that person was very specific. And they actually said they didn't finish the second season, but it helped them enough. So yes, whatever you watch, whatever someone says, whatever event, whatever you read can induce something. That's also called secondary trauma. Is guilt for recovering from grief like survivor guilt? Thank you for that. Yeah. Guilt is something you can overcome when it comes to something specific like survivor's guilt. You want to enjoy your life. You can definitely feel that guilt because you're like, oh my goodness, this person's spouse didn't survive, but I did. That's definitely understandable. But that grief should be navigated because you want to live your life, and there's thankfulness to that, right? Your family is thankful you're there. So there's all that, and we see that in the K-dramas. But then there's also guilt, covering from guilt, like in general. Guilt is something sometimes you may always have to navigate. I'll give you an example. Caregiver guilt. You may continually navigate taking care of somebody till forever, because you're like, you know what? I don't feel like taking care of this person. Then there's guilt. That's something you may continually navigate. Another thing you may continually navigate, working mom, working parent, like, but you're navigating it. And then you may get better at navigating. Sometimes the guilt overwhelms you and you kind of act in that guilt. So guilt is tricky, but survivor's guilt, I do think that is something that should be resolved and addressed, because then you are constantly living in, I guess, a pain of, like you should have died, or like you should have not been here. And that's a terrible way to live. But then there is a such, hopefully I answered this. There is guilt a lot. I refrain from saying, let's resolve that guilt. But I will say, I want you to help kind of get through that guilt when it comes to survivor's guilt. But other forms of guilt, you may continually navigate. Hometown Cha-Cha, the fresh grief as a pathway to help others toward old grief. Yeah. Oh yeah, I did have Hometown Cha-Cha here. Yeah, Hometown Cha-Cha. Maybe because I always mention it. Thank you for that. Okay, and then I think this is the last one, because I knew there was that question from today we had to add. Thank you for your questions. I went way long. Thank you for sticking on. Always lots to share. I call them K labels because let me end with why. I hear a lot about K trauma. I dislike that word. Let me share why I dislike it. Because yes, you have a drama that induces trauma, but I don't like labeling a Korean drama or K trauma. I know it's a joke. Actually, people are like, it's a joke. I go, yeah, but as someone who works with trauma, unless you treat somebody, a patient with trauma, I don't use that word lightly. And, and also, it is a show. So I always say it's a show. Yes, it can be traumatic if it induces that trauma in real life, but I don't like to ever make light of trauma. So whenever I hear K trauma, I finally had to say it because I went, how about we not say that? How about it's a joke and you can say, I'm joking, but then let's rephrase it. So that's why I said that. And the K dramas as therapy. So you will actually see me say, I don't say that. It's not because I'm a therapist, but coming from a therapist, they're not therapy. K dramas are therapy is therapy, but K dramas are therapeutic. They are great coping tools, mechanisms. I make it very clear in my book, and I continually say that as wording because it shouldn't be a replacement for help. It could actually be a temporary reprieve from the help you may need. But if you need help, you need help. So that's why I say, K drama therapy. I don't repeat that phrase. I tend to go, well, I actually don't say that. And you may just think it's because I'm just a therapist. It's also because therapy should be taken seriously. It's therapy. People may think you can use a K drama. Like people have actually misconstrued like my work going, no, I'm not saying binge a K drama and it helps you. I think you'll feel that help. And some people feel like, oh my gosh, now Jeannie, it's helped me so much that I'm realizing certain things. But then there's always that boundary of going, well, will that thing come back? Because then maybe you do need some help to work through that. Or that's great. It helped you through a really tough time in life. Really depends on that, right? And then I think there's something else. Oh, and then I think I addressed other labels, like you're too sensitive. I think someone said that to me, and I just went, "Oh, yeah, I think I said this. Yeah, I'm sensitive when it comes to things like that. When you say K trauma." So I have gotten better, but I work hard at it too. At the end of the day, I'm going to share this. I'm giving some advice and feedback, but we all have our own solutions. So find your own strengths, like I myself do, and how I handle things may not be the way you handle things. But just know no one will say it for you. So if you feel like you do need to say something, as introverted as you may be, then practice it. You can even type it out and practice it. People think that's silly. I'm like, why? Like you may need to someday say, oh, here's how I want to say this, and say it in 30 seconds or maybe say it in 10 seconds, but you practice it. By the way, it builds your confidence. And then you feel so much better when you got it off your chest, but it's up to the other person on how they're going to take it. People might go, oh, geez, I thought Jeannie was nice. You can't accept how people are going to take it, but you'll feel better. I can guarantee that you will feel better because you shared it the way you said. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Have the rest of a good Saturday. Now I have to clean up and stuff, and love you guys. And maybe I'll do another show before I go to Korea, but it's still a couple weeks. And keep DMing me, guys. I love when you guys keep in touch. Oh, yeah, this thing. I still do this. I think there's a new thing now. It's like, have you seen it? It's this, but it's like this. Okay, I think it's like this. Yeah, someone told me that the other day. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't keep up with the hearts. All right, guys, have a good rest of the Saturday.